Welcome to Living the Smarter Science of Slim, where we provide a scientifically proven lifestyle for long-term health and fat loss by eating more and exercising less, but smarter.
Eat smarter, exercise smarter, live better. I am so ready for that.
Hey everyone, Jonathan Bailor here with none other than the Carrie Brown with another Smarter Science of Slim podcast. And folks, I'm going to give a little disclaimer. Carrie got some really good news today. So she is in a state of euphoria and mad euphoria. So I might have to do some reeling of Carrie in here. She is in quite the unique state. So Carrie, welcome to this show.
Hey everyone,
Are you here?
I am here, but my brain is somewhere else. Or rather, it's in my head, but the synapses are just not kind of meeting up right now. I'm just too excited to think straight.
Well, excellent. Well, very, very happy to have Carrie in a happy state. And I think, Carrie, we're going to get our listeners in a happy state here too, because the first thing I wanted to talk about today was, and I know you're going to kind of mock me a little bit potentially here, but an example of my baking, in quotations, baking. But this is one that you got to give a little bit of props to, because I'm gonna give some assembly tips that I hope, Carrie, you can then help people to do more with, since you are the expert. But I continue to get questions about my SANE peanut butter pie, and I want to geek out about my SANE peanut butter pie here for a second, and why I'm proud of it, and then you can tell me all the bad things about it. Is that okay?
That's just fine. Okay. Sweetie, you go right ahead and talk about your peanut butter pie.
So for folks who have not seen my peanut butter pie recipe, I would encourage you to go to thesmarterscienceslim.com and just do a quick search for SANE peanut butter pie, or just go to your favorite search engine and search for SANE peanut butter pie. And the reason I'm pleased with my peanut butter pie is that the filling of the peanut butter pie is actually it makes your peanut butter pie as good of a source of protein as salmon, and a superior source of protein than eggs, a vastly superior source of protein. Peanut butter pie filling, Carrie. Are you wondering how that could be possible?
No. I'm wondering if I should railroad you this.
No, let me keep the hope alive.
Okay.
Keep the hope alive. And folks, and do understand that certainly Carrie will propose ways to make this far superior from a culinary perspective, but I just want to share how we are not going to be living a life of deprivation when we are SANE, especially when you take the flaccid attempts at baking that I can offer and compound them with the structure that Carrie adds. But let's just break this down here for a second. So SANE peanut butter pie filling, which is composed of essentially non-fat plain Greek yogurt, a bit of peanut butter, about 2 tablespoons worth of like a xylitol or a stevia. But of course, you can't use 2 tablespoons of stevia. Carrie's going to, oh my God, she's going to freak out. But so some of that stuff, Carrie's literally just biting her lips so hard right now.
You might be happy that I'm not in thinking mode today.
You throw some protein powder, some vanilla protein powder in there, and some vanilla extract. And what you end up with, Carrie, is something that is, of course, let's be honest here, it's not going to taste as good as regular peanut butter pie. But I would argue that it will get you 80 to 90% there. And what we just talked about is 44% protein, 42% healthy fat, and 14% carbohydrate. To put that in perspective, like salmon, which everyone is like, salmon is glorious, and it is 48% protein. So this peanut butter pie filling has a nutritional profile almost of like a freaking salmon, and it's peanut butter pie. What? So isn't that so? That Carrie, now please
awesome.
That's awesome.
I am so proud of you, Jonathan.
So if you want more details on the actual recipe in its pathetic Jonathan Bailor format, please just search for SANE peanut butter pie. I think it's good. Now, if you are more into actual baking and less of, Carrie would call it, which is fair, assembly, which is what I do. Carrie, tell us about some better ways we can make SANE peanut butter pie.
So there's one really easy way to make your scrumptious SANE peanut butter pie even saner, and have an even better profile than what you've just described.
So just basically everything you just heard, folks, ignore and listen to what
No. Brilliant base.
Okay, there you
But
go.
if you want to make it even saner and like even off the charts that makes salmon look like candy, just whip up some egg whites.
Mm-hmm.
The xylitol, add to the egg whites to make a meringue, and add that to the mousse. So it'll do two things. It'll change the profile. It'll add a whole bunch more protein, but also it makes a much lighter, more moussey than Jonathan's is very dense. So this just makes a lighter, fluffier version.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Which is great because I think a lot of this, Carrie, we know that sometimes eating a nice big piece of something or a nice big bowl of something that fulfills a need that sometimes you just got to have. You just got to eat that big bowl or that big piece. And if you can add some fluff and if you can enable us to enjoy more of something without doing metabolic damage to ourselves, hey, go Carrie.
And I think that was when I first made yours and then I modified it with the addition of the meringue with egg whites, I could eat more of the meringue version than I could the straight version. Yours was very heavy, very solid.
Absolutely.
Whereas I could eat more of mine. Plus it had the extra protein in it.
Which is glorious, actually. And just riffing off that, Carrie, the idea of finding ways to make the same amount of food or to be able to enjoy more of a taste. Because that's really what we're talking about here. We want to, instead of having 2 bites of it, you can have 12 bites of it or 10, exactly. One thing that I've been doing recently, and I know you're working on making the real version of this, is traditionally I would make puddings. A pudding would be like a cocoa and a casein-based protein powder and maybe some nut butter, and I would just make that into a pudding. But now what I've started to do is add, so first of all, guar gum has changed my life, so thank you, Carrie Brown. Like literally, I now put guar gum in like everything. Even if it doesn't need guar gum, I just put it in there. No, I'm just kidding. If you don't know what...
Jonathan, you are just so driven when you get an idea, aren't you?
I am. And if you don't know what guar gum is, Carrie has an awesome post on her website, Marmalade Mile Posts, which describes this and other unique ingredients that she uses. And the more you use, the happier you'll be if your experience is anything like mine. And throw some guar gum in there, which I never used. Throw some more water in there. And I throw a bunch of ice in there. And I put it in the Vitamix. And to be clear, it doesn't really become ice cream as you would think in the traditional sense. But it does start to take on more of a Wendy's Frosty type of consistency. And
don't swear on our podcast. Wendy's Frosty.
I even put, Carrie, you'll be proud, I actually got some almond extract and some coconut extract. Put a little bit of that in there. What?
I'm going to have to reel you in the kitchen next.
I know. But it was, and I had this giant bowl of it, and it just shocked me because the volume of the pudding would probably fit in like 2 shot glasses. But the volume when I added a little bit more water and a little bit more ice was in this big old bowl, which, and I just nom with my big spoon. And yeah, I actually got a brain freeze, which was not as nice.
One of these days I'm going to come over and I'm going to have your lovely wife help me take pictures of you doing some of this stuff. Because that would be funny.
It would be funny. We will certainly have to do some sort of vodcasting in our copious amounts of free time, building off of our segment from last week. We have a list, folks. We do have a list. Like
we'll get back to you in 2016.
So, yeah. But nonetheless, SANE peanut butter pie, fun ways to eat more without clogging ourselves and enjoying tastes. So, that's positive, I think.
Yum.
Next, Carrie.
Yes, Jonathan.
Next. Are you ready for this?
I am so ready. I have no idea what for, but whatever it is, bring it on.
So, what I want to talk about right now, Carrie, is what I think is a really, so I've gotten some feedback over the past couple of weeks of whenever we start a new lifestyle program, diet, exercise, whatever, or just trying to go to school or learn anything new, it's intimidating right at the start because it can seem overwhelming. And that's true. Another thing that's true, though, is I've found, especially when it comes to changing how we eat and how we exercise, that while the very beginning may be the most intimidating, in some ways it's the time that holds the most promise. Because you will see more change more quickly right when you start any kind of lifestyle program, right from the get-go, like assuming you have the correct information. Again, if we've been told to eat less and exercise more, it ain't going to work no matter where in the cycle you are. But if we're eating smarter and we're exercising smarter, try, if at all possible, to counterbalance the negative momentum of just, oh my gosh, it's the status quo and it's always hard to make a change and it's always easy to just maintain the status quo with, if you do this properly with science on your side and with your heart in the right place and with your brain empowered with the right information, the amount of results you can see in the first couple of weeks are truly profound.
That was my experience.
And I think it's in no more obvious a setting of especially strength training, where individuals who strength train, who have started to strength train, are able to find that, let's take the push-ups, for example, someone who has never, who can't even lower themselves down for an eccentric push-up, finds that the amount of progress they're able to make in literally just weeks with correct information, they can now do something they have never in their life been able to do. And the reason I mention that is also because I've heard that there can be some challenges, certainly the further you get. So if the further you get towards your, whether they be weight loss goals or health goals or any kind of goal in life, the better you do, the harder it gets to get even better at it, right? So, I mean, we all know this, it's called diminishing marginal returns, where the further you are along, the harder it gets to make additional progress. But when we start a program, we have that promise of just incredible results in the first couple of weeks if we have the right information. And I mention that only because in some ways, starting this lifestyle is the hardest part. Because once you're doing it and once you're on it and once you're seeing the results and once you're feeling better, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's a virtuous cycle. But if you need that extra push to get started, understand that in the first 3 weeks, you have the potential to see more results in those 3 weeks than in any other 3-week segment you will ever see. If you do the same things, like if you wildly improve your diet, then of course you could see better results in the future. But assuming the same amount of effort, you will see more results in the first 3 weeks than in any other 3-week period.
However, and I think that is true for most people, however, your brother, for example, did not have that result. He kind of stayed stuck for 2 months and then had the big results. So if you are one of those people for who that is not true, don't give up. Don't think it's not going to work. It will.
I'm so glad you brought up that contrast, Carrie, because you're right. There's two. What I said is very true for strength training. There really is. I actually don't think it's physiologically possible to have an individual who doesn't. You lift a certain amount of weight, nothing happens. You lift a certain amount of weight, nothing happens. You lift a certain amount of weight. Oh, and then in week 3, something happens. So with weight training, it's a little bit different, or even cardiovascular conditioning. It is going to be a bit more linear and then trail off at the end. Many people, no one will ever be able to bench press 5,000 pounds, ever, because the human body, levels out.
Not even Jonathan Bailor?
No, not even close. But to Carrie's point, which is spot on, a lot of people do experience that from a fat loss and diet perspective, but there are a good number of people who don't. And we called it, what I've called this is the delayed landslide effect, where it's a bit like the metabolism is broken such that nothing moves until your metabolism hits a threshold. Let's call it fixed. Imagine your metabolism is like a broken ankle. You can't walk on that ankle till it's fixed. And then once it's fixed, you can walk on it and you're good. That's what Carrie's describing happened to my brother. He really didn't see any results for 2 months. He thought I was full of it. And then in 30 days, his body just transformed itself and he wasn't doing anything different. And we actually have many, many reports of that in the Smarter Science of Slim support group. So you will potentially see dramatic results in the first few weeks. If you don't, understand that your body's healing below the surface and that you're going to expect to see a waterfall effect, assuming you are in fact being sane and not just thinking.
Playing.
Yeah, exactly. So wanted to share some expectation setting with the good listeners.
Yeah, and that's great. I just think we always need to mention that there's always going to be some people that fall outside the norm. I mean, they're just, and so don't freak out if you're one of those.
And the other thing to really keep in mind, and I think we're actually going to dig into this much more in some future podcasts, but I wanted to touch on it briefly right now, is that we cannot, when it comes to strength development, when it comes to body fat loss, when it comes to anything with our bodies, we really can't compare ourselves to other people. That's a bit like saying, I mean, to be very clear, right, there are people who are genetically fast. Like, let's look at a different area of physiology, right? So I played sports when I was younger. I'm not that fast. I'm relatively fast, but there are fast people in the world. Like, Olympic sprinters are fast. And there's nothing I could do to become like an Olympic sprinter, ever. I just can't do that. My body is not constructed that way. And there's a reason, like there's a percentage of fast versus slow twitch muscle fibers and blah, 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 blah. I cannot change the type of muscle fibers I have on my body to be like a body of a Olympic sprinter, let's say.
Jonathan, we're just finding out all this stuff that you can't do. We thought you were Superman. That's
False.
like twice in 5 minutes. You
False.
just said you're just ruining our hope here.
Well, we could fill up many, many podcast episodes with that which I could improve dramatically, but I don't want to bore our listeners. So I say that only because the reality, and I know this may not be, I mean, it kind of stinks. I would love to be an Olympic sprinter. I would love to play in the NFL. It would make me very happy, but that's just not in the genetic cards for me. And that's okay. I can do other things well. There are people, for example, if you are a postmenopausal woman who lived through, I'll call it the Great Depression of nutrition, meaning you lived through the era where you were told that as long as it's low in fat, it's good for you. And then so you ate the Wonder Bread, you ate the sugar and everything. You lived through the Great Nutritional Depression. Something happened to your metabolism because of that. It's more analogous to smoking. Like when you smoke, something happens to your lungs. And you can certainly stop that from happening and you can fix it to some extent. But that's why we're like, smoking is bad, because it does in some ways irreparable damage to your lungs. Now, this is not a message of get depressed, get sad, but understand that if you're a postmenopausal woman who for 30 years yo-yo dieted and was subjected to deficient and in some ways demonic nutritional guidance, that even if you did the exact same things as a 23-year-old man, you will not get the same results as a 23-year-old man. Just like if you wanted to run faster, even if you trained as hard as a 23-year-old man, you will not be as fast as that 23-year-old man. There are just differences in our bodies. And I say that because we always talk about like natural and just healing our body and a healthy body. Carrie, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that naturally, a 60-year-old woman does not have a six-pack. Naturally. So if we wanted to have six-pack abs, for most people, that isn't natural. So
At any age.
At any age. So to expect that we can just eat food and exercise occasionally, like that's a natural thing. We will not get an unnatural result from a natural approach. So if I'm a postmenopausal woman who eats when I'm hungry, stops when I'm full, enjoys treats every once in a while, and exercises intelligently, you will achieve health. And you will achieve a level of fitness and robustness, which is natural and awesome. But just like that 26-year-old fitness model has to dedicate her entire life to looking the way that gets her on the cover of those magazines, it's unreasonable for us to think that, one, even if we did dedicate our entire life to it, that we could achieve the same result of someone who has a completely different genetic makeup than us, and two, that if we're not interested in exerting that much effort, which I know I personally am not, that we're also not going to see those kinds of results, right?
Plus, if you're postmenopausal, your body is just not, I mean, you're kind of, this sounds terrible, but I mean, your body is in decline. You're just never going to get to the same place as a 23-year-old. I mean, you can't.
And at the same time, you will be in a place mentally, you will be in a place with your self-confidence, you will be in a place with your relationships and potentially with your career success that 20-year-old could never hope to be in, right? So play up your strengths, enjoy your strengths, embrace where you are in your life, and also understand that that came out wrong. I know that our goal here, Living the Smarter Science of Slim, is about allowing us to achieve health, nutrition, and fitness serenity. And that means we don't think about it. We're able to focus on other stuff. Like, we get this set, we figure out how we want to eat, we figure out how we want to exercise, we try out to figure out what works with us with a baseline of science founded in non-starchy vegetables, nutrient-dense proteins, whole food fats, and low fructose fruits. And then we don't have to think about it anymore.
It's just autopilot.
But if you want to be a professional athlete, if you want to have six-pack abs, if you want to look like someone who thinks about these things a lot, you will have to start thinking about them a lot, and it will become kind of like a job. So if you don't want that, that's cool. That's what we're here for. And if you do want that, you're going to have to take some additional steps beyond the baseline. Just eat sane foods when you're hungry and stop when you're not, and exercise eccentrically, because that will get you to natural. That will get you to healthy. It won't get you to, in some cases, unnatural and unhealthy.
Right.
It's not healthy for a female to have single-digit body fat percent at all. Her menstrual cycle stops. Her hormones are completely...
And that's a bad thing?
Well, you understand what I'm saying. You understand what I'm saying.
Okay, now he's going red. Yes!
But
gotcha.
I just wanted to bring that out because, again, we're about natural, we're about sustainable, we're about practical, we're about permanent. That is a completely different approach than someone who's after washboard abs or magazine cover, because you ain't going to be on magazine covers forever, and you're not going to have a washboard stomach. I mean, look at Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? Freaking one of the most greatest. Apparently, my mind is not here either. One of the greatest physiques of all time. I guarantee you does not. I mean, he doesn't look that way now, right? So it's all good. Let's celebrate where we are in life. And let's always play the hand we're dealt to the best of our ability, rather than wishing we had different cards.
And I think we've said this over and over again on many different podcasts, is you just have to be clear about what your goal is, and then tailor the principles that Jonathan teaches to meet your end goal and where you're starting from.
Yep. And please do understand that this actually gets back, and this is a great point to end the show on, because it circles us back a little bit. We talked about how for some of us who don't have this delayed waterfall effect for our fat loss, that let's say you exert, I'm going to be kind of economics geek here. Let's say you exert 2 units of effort into eating sanely and into exercising intelligently. And those 2 units of effort help you to gain 4 pounds of compact, beautiful, metabolically healthy muscle, and to drop 10 pounds of fat. So wildly changing your body composition, wildly improving your health. Just like if you kept just memorizing your multiplication tables over and over and over again, like you wouldn't get any better at math. Like once you understand your multiplication tables, you understand them. Rehearsing them over and over again doesn't really help you. You have to move on to something advanced. You have to move on to like maybe geometry or pre-calculus or calculus if you want to do better. So if 2 units of effort from a dietary and from an exercise perspective got you to, let's say, drop your body fat percentage 7%, 2 units of effort will not drop you another 7%.
It'll take 4.
Or just more than 2. And I make that point because I think we get that with every other area of life. Like if you want to become better at math, you can't just just keep practicing your multiplication tables. Once your brain reaches a certain level, if you want your brain to get better, you have to keep pushing it. You have to keep doing more. Or you could be like, I'm happy with where I'm at, so I'm going to maintain. But please do understand that what you did to get where you're at today might not be enough if you want to go further. But if you're happy with where you're at today, that's awesome. But just keep in mind, for example, if you're like, I'm stalled. Well, you might not be stalled. Your current effort level may have taken you to where that effort level can take you. And you're not stalled. You've reached the goal that that level of effort can give you. And if you want to go further, it just might be a function of, is it worth it to you to put the additional time and effort in that it would take to do that?
Got it.
Make sense?
Yep.
I love it. I love it. Well, Carrie, I want you to close this podcast because you entered this podcast in such a state of joy and exuberance that I want you to leave us with a nugget. Share your joy with us, Carrie, with some words of wisdom.
Oh, I can share joy. I'm not sure I can be wise about it. I can't. So I'm just going to say, hurrah!
See, I put Carrie on the spot, where are you at?
My brain wasn't functioning when we started out. I have just proved that to be true.
Well, folks, as always, thank you so much for joining us, and I hope this week's show was helpful. And remember, this week and every week after, eat more and exercise less, but do that smarter. Talk with you soon.
Wait, don't stop listening yet. If you like the podcast and if there's other ways we can help you, please join us in the Smarter Science of Slim support group, which is freely available at the Smarter Science of Slim website, smarterscienceofslim.com. There you'll find all kinds of free recipes and success stories and just all kinds of fun stuff like how to help your kids go sane and just great community content.
And just one last thing before you go, if you wouldn't mind heading over to iTunes and up onto Amazon.com and leaving us a review, and then going over to Facebook and liking us, we would hugely appreciate it.